Hi everyone, welcome to the Yes Alumni Global Youth Service Day webinar. As I'm sure many of you already know, GYSD is the largest service event in the world, and it's coming up in just 2 weeks. And since it's the only set holiday that's dedicated to the contributions of young people, it's often a time that Yes Alumni do a lot of projects. And we are very lucky today to have an expert panel of Yes Alumni here to help us get ready for April 15th to 17th GYSD, which is coming up really soon. They're going to tell us about past projects that they've done and what they've learned from it. And so on the panel, we have Hassan Saeed from Pakistan, who's going to talk about brainstorming project ideas and project planning. We have Dima Helou from West Bank, and she's going to discuss how to develop partnerships. And Simona Ristovska from Macedonia is going to share about best practices for creating sustainable projects. So hopefully between all of those things, it will help you get in the GYSD spirit and also help prepare you for project planning. If you have any questions at any time, you can put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that the panel answers them at the end of the presentations. We also have many polls throughout the webinar that we hope that you will help us answer and take part in the discussion. We also have a pretty special part of the presentation, and Dima is going to help us with that. I don't know, actually, if you could type in the chat box right now, how many of you are already familiar with the UN, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? For those of you who are not yet familiar with them, they went into effect this January 1st, and it's the UN's mission to try to get the whole world working together on these 17 goals in order to help the world become a better place, to end poverty, to fight inequalities, and to tackle climate change, and they're in effect for the next 15 years. So this year for GYSD, we really encourage you, the SE alumni, to align your service projects with one of these goals. And Dima happens to know a lot about them, so she's also going to give us some ideas about how to do that. So without further ado, we just want to say that we are so excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you're new to Adobe Connect, just remember to chat in the chat box if you have any questions or you have any comments to answer the polls. And I just want to let you know that we are recording this, so you can tell other people in your Yes Alumni network to watch it. You can watch it yourself for a refresher. There will be a link to it on the Yes website under Alumni Resources. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with Hassan.
Hi everyone, my name is Hassan Saeed and I am from Pakistan. I was one of the YES program students back in 2008 and 9, and I was placed in a small city of Topeka in Kansas. I'm so excited to be speaking to all of you about the Global Youth Service Day and how to plan projects in the upcoming days. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules and be here. I hope my voice is clear to everyone, so if there's any problem you can type in the chat box and we'll get back to you. Right, so the Global Youth Service Day days are basically April 15th to April 17th, 2016. You might think it's far away from here, but if we get into the planning phase, we'll find out that it's not that far away. So let's get started. Yes, we can get this presentation to you after the webinar. Bethany can make arrangements, I think. Right, so project management. So project management has 3 different phases of the project. So the first phase is project planning, is what we'll talk about shortly after this. The second phase is the project implementation. And the third phase is project reporting. If we speak in detail about the project planning phase, so first of all, it stems from a project idea. So if you have a project idea, it could be any idea. It doesn't have to be a really well-sharpened idea. It could be a very raw idea. So if you have it, this is the first step of the project planning. And it can be finalized with having discussions with fellow alumni. Usually what we have on our end is that we have meetings of the alumni where we get together and discuss ideas about how to go about a certain project, and they also share their ideas. So that is also encouraged, and we have a list of ideas at the end of the meeting, which we finalize and then go ahead with the project. And it doesn't have to be just for Global Youth Service Day. It has we do meetings for general projects on monthly basis as well. In case physically getting together is difficult, we have a Facebook messaging thread, and that's something which I will encourage a lot of you to do in your areas, because physically gathering might be difficult for the alumni, but if you have the virtual connectivity, it could be Facebook or WhatsApp or anything that works in your country, you can start doing that and share your ideas there and use those platforms to finalize them. Once you have a project idea that is finalized, you can go ahead and work on the details in terms of who's going to do what work, in terms of the responsibilities and confirming with the school administration or the venue. And sometimes if you do not assign tasks to the alumni as part of your team, you tend to have a very cold environment. And what I mean by that is that they don't feel part of the project. They don't feel responsible. It's more of an autocratic project where you are doing pretty much everything, and that's a discouraging sort of type of leadership. What I would suggest is that when you assign them responsibilities, they feel part of the project. They feel responsible, and their input is what they consider incremental to the success of the project. So let's assign them tasks and responsibilities as a democratic sort of form of leadership. And when you do that, you will see the difference between success results. Right, so I talked about Facebook messaging thread, which is encouraging, which I will encourage all of you to do that. If Facebook is not popular in your country, you can use WhatsApp or Google, whatever is feasible for you. If you have a project that is if you have a project that is aimed at sort of having a PowerPoint presentation, so as part of the meeting, you can assign them responsibilities to the alumni in terms of making those PowerPoint presentations, and that's something which usually is missed. And on the project day, it leads into a lot of difficulties for the team. So if you assign tasks and responsibilities in terms of making presentations right away, you will sort of tackle those problems. And yeah, logistical preparations in terms of arranging things, stationery, multimedia, projectors, everything that is needed for the success of the project and the and the sort of smooth happening of the project is what is discussed as part of the first phase of the project planning. And once you have all these things listed down, I think Dima also shared that they have a very nice sort of document in which they record everything, and they include manpower plan, the agenda sheet, the sheet for responsible planning, and then they also have like a plan B sheet in which they talk about the emergency planning. So I think that's also definitely an encouraging practice, and you can have similar sheets in your area which can be used as part of the project planning phase. If you meanwhile have any questions, you can keep typing them and we'll get back to you. Right, so the project timeline. So once you have the project, and I've written approved because in our setup as part of the Yes Alumni Association in Pakistan, we have the project proposals that are sent in and they're approved. It may not apply to your setup, but that's something which we have here. So once that is done, once your idea is finalized, you can talk about timings and all the other details. If you don't have a team for the project, we in Pakistan have a Yes Alumni Facebook group where we put up the details of the project in terms of timings and date and how the alumni can join if they are available. So you can do that as well. And then once you have a team, you can sort of finalize the details of the project with them and assign them responsibilities and tasks. And then, of course, you plan the project with them and sort of implement it and report. As an example of the project, I have included a project that was carried out last year and sort of earlier this year as well. Project Re-Educate. We focused in Pakistan during the Global Youth Service Day on high schools, in which the students usually go and study their course books and academic books, but they do not practice their connectivity, and they sort of do not practice their learning. And the YES alumni in Pakistan thought about that, and they came up with a list of topics including active citizenship, human rights, global health, global warming, and community service activities. So during the 2 days, the first day focused on delivering lectures about these topics, showing them videos, having a guest speaker come in and talk about how they can be active citizens, how they should know about human rights, how global health needs to be discussed. And by the way, we also have World Health Day coming up, so that is also something which you can talk about in your planning phases and do projects on them. And then, yeah, we also talked about global warming as an issue and community service activities, which is not part of the academic setup here in Pakistan. So the first day was more lecture-based, and then on second day we included a more practical approach in which the students gathered, and they were divided in different teams, and they collected trash across the school area and cleaned the school premises, and that was something which was pretty good, because they felt included and they felt important to the society, and how their input cleaned the area, and they could see it themselves as well as active citizens, and their community service input was there as well. So it was pretty good, and we learned that when you have the learning in terms of education in practicality, that's very successful. So it was a very successful project, and that's why it's one of the examples that I'm sharing with you in terms of how we approached it. When we, on the first day, talked about the lectures, and then on the second day we talked about more of a practical approach and how that was important for the success of the project. And after the end of the project, the 2 days, the students, the participants of the workshop, were divided in teams, and they conducted similar projects with the other students in the school, and how the learning was multiplied with multiple other students. So it was also pretty good. And then the alumni nationwide carried out the project in their regions. So if you need more information about the project, you can always reach out to me or Bethany or Christine, and we'll give you the details. Right, these are some of the pictures which you can see in terms of how both the phases of the project are shown. You can see that there are the lectures in one side, and then there's also a practical approach on the other as well. I'll give you a few more seconds to see the pictures. Right, so some of the tips that will apply to your project, not just in terms of Global Youth Service Day, but also, Right, so some of the tips that will apply to your projects, not just in terms of Global Youth Service Day, but generally across the whole project that you will do. So the first thing is that get a good night's sleep before the project and start the day early in the morning. If you don't have sleep, and if you do have sleep, you will see the difference when you are in the field and doing the project. So you need to be fresh and ready and active and on the go on the project day, and that's very important because your impression is sort of very important. Sometimes we have the alumni that are going to the school to conduct sessions on project management and time management, and they sort of themselves are late, and that's not good. So if you have a project or if you have a setting of timing with someone, always be on time, and that's a very good impression that you make. Once you go and reach the venue, meet the personnel that was in charge and who has helped you plan the project and show your gratitude, because it's also a time for you to make partnerships and connect with them over the longer period of time. In front of the students, when you're sort of around them and with the participants, always behave yourself and always be at the best of your behavior, because you are best of the best. And when I say that, it's because you are YES alumni. You can be spotted from a mile distance. That's what we have a saying here in Pakistan. So you are all polished individuals, and you're great, and you should behave yourself around them and always be at the best of your behavior. This may not apply to your regions, but in Pakistan we also carry out projects with schools where the students and especially girls are not comfortable with getting their pictures taken. So if that's the case in your area, then that's okay. You don't have to take pictures, or you can place the students in areas where they're not part of most of the pictures. So keep that in consideration as well, and put it in your planning phase, and discuss that with your team before you do the project. And this would be my last slide, the timeline for Global Youth Service Day. So begin discussing your ideas, and I've written the last 10 days of March towards last 10 days of March. We are across that time. We're into the next month now, April, but so you should start doing that now. We may feel like April 15th is very far away from now, but it's not that far. You should definitely discuss your ideas right away and enjoy doing that. Make a Facebook messaging thread if you don't have it now. Like I said, it's very important, and it will help you in future as well. No project is a stupid project. You should definitely encourage the alumni to share ideas, and they're part of your team, they're assets, and in a business, if you have assets, you keep it close to your heart. So always invest in your assets, and always enjoy being a part of that project, because it's not something that you can take credit for alone or something like that. It's a teamwork, like Christine said. It's a team effort, and everything is very important for you to do that. Encourage the alumni to share ideas, because if you don't, there will be a point when you will need them to share the ideas, and your behavior and your autocratic behavior might discourage them. So don't do that, and always encourage them. Always keep in mind that at some points you will need to plan with speed, and what I mean by that is that sometimes the project will need to be done at a quicker pace than you usually do. So if that's the case, you should always discuss that in your planning phase of the project, and keep that in consideration. Multiple activities on the same day. Usually the alumni are not free throughout the week, and they have Saturdays and Sundays free. So if that's the case, you can do multiple activities on the same day as well, and that's not discouraged. That's actually very encouraged, and it will show the impact more than you think. Don't forget to register your project. Bethany or Christine will share the link where you can do that, and once you do that, you will have a bigger audience where you can share the impact of the project and create a more hype on social media. If you finish the project, for example, on Sunday or Saturday or something like that, you should definitely post the outcomes of the project maximum in the next 24 hours. If you don't, you will sort of lose the value of the project, so don't forget to do that. And let's not forget that it's a great time for us to be making friendships and enjoy the experience and learnings. And it's for the betterment of the community, and it's for the betterment of the people. And the more you do that, the more outcome and the more good you will see in the people. So thank you so much for listening to me. And if you have any questions, you can continue typing them in the chat box, and we'll get back to you.
Hi, Hassan. Thank you so much for sharing about your experience and about your project tips. I could see in the chat box that a lot of people found them very useful. If any of you have questions for Hassan, you can type them in the chat box, and I will collect them, and we can ask them at the end of the presentations, okay? And so with that, we will move on to hear from Dima about how to create partnerships.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the webinar so far. I'm Dima Helou, I'm from the West Bank. I was placed in Houston, Texas by IUSA in the year 2013-2014, and now I study in Lebanon. Today I will be talking about our program we did in the West Bank. For those in need, I apologize for the background noise. And then I will be talking about partners. So our project was a brief description is that it was partners with the U.S. Consulate in Jerusalem and the local youth campaign called Think of Others. And the aim of the project was to collect donations through a clothing drive and then package and separate them. And then the third phase was to distribute them to Think of Others and then distribute them to families in need. So the first activity of the project was collecting the donations from the U.S. Consulate in Jerusalem. And here's a picture of us categorizing them. So it wasn't really easy because we had to categorize according to sizes, according to male, female, child, adult, and so on. So it took us about 2 days to do that. And then the second activity of the project was to reach to Think of Others, and they're a local youth campaign. They're led by youth in the West Bank, and what they do is they try to help as much as they can families in need in the West Bank. So for example, they help with housing, they help with paying rent of families, they help with bread. So if you go to a bakery, if you can't get bread, then you get it for free. They always pay fees for that, and clothing. And they do this clothing drive almost each year. So this year we reach out to them by providing them the clothing and packaging it. Here's a picture of us. Of course, the volunteers weren't only us. It was also volunteers from Think of Others. We packaged, we hanged them, and we did all that. And as you can see in this picture, this is all the clothes we got. It was a really huge amount, and it was really surprising for us that the clothes were in really good quality, and they were all brands. They were clean. Like we only had like almost 10 bags that we had to take to the dry clean to fix, but most of it were in perfect condition. And this is me carrying one of the bags. And then this is an overall of the activity. So you can see us giving the clothes to Think of Others, packaging them, and putting them on display. Okay, so now, since Hassan talked about how to brainstorm and how to plan your event or project, what you need to do next is to secure your project and to make it strong. And you can do that by looking for partners. So how do you look for partners? I gave you 3 basic ways. The first one is networking, second is research, and third is making phone calls. And what do I mean by networking? When I say networking, is always look for events around you. Always try to go around, see what's happening in your city, in other cities, maybe in universities, whatever is going on. Just go ahead and look and go, attend, talk, speak about your project, speak about the YES program, speak about M&E, speak about iron, anything. And this will help you get contacts, get business cards, and so on, so that whenever you have a project upcoming, you just need to go through your contacts. Another thing is research. So for example, as Bethany said, if you're going to align your project with one of the SDGs, then it's easy for you to look for NGOs, because if you're making a project on gender equality, then all you need to look for is the NGOs in your area that align with gender equality. And this is really, 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 really helpful, and it makes your project easier and more sustainable, and I really advise you to go with that. Another thing is make phone calls. In your phone calls, you don't have to sell anything. All you have to do is introduce yourself, introduce your organization, your project, what's going to be, maybe set up a meeting through the phone call, maybe just word of mouth, anything that can help you get your project out there and look for support. What's next is how to approach them. So we talked about how to look for them, but now how are we going to approach them? I gave you 5 ways. The first way is always tackle why their collaboration aligns with yours. So why why did you go to them? Why do you want that partner? What aligns, does the purpose of your project align with them? So as I said before, if you're doing one of the SDGs and if you're doing gender equality, then if you go to a Women Institute NGO, then all you need to do is introduce your project and say why you're doing gender equality and how this aligns to their purpose. Another thing is always make sure to know every single logistical matter of your project. You need to know every single bit of your project because it's not nice when you're approaching your partner and they ask you something about your project and you have no clue. So always know every single thing, even if it's not in your hands, but always try to know everything. The third one is never approach your partner when your project is not done. Have everything done and the only thing is missing is that you need a partner. Sometimes you don't need a partner, but it's always better to have one. So always go to the partner when everything's done and you're just looking for a partner. Because this shows that you're ready, you're set to go, you're independent, you know how to get this project out, you know your audience, you know who you're tackling, you know your community and so forth. The fourth thing is inform your partner on what it is in for them. So what would they benefit? Because mostly partners always want to know what's in it for them. Why am I doing this? What would I get? How am I going to impact the society? What impact is going to be on the youth? Everything they need to know, and you can provide it with them. And that's why you have to research your partner very well before approaching them. The last one is try not to sell your project from the first meeting or any first interaction because that is not legit. It shows that you're just trying to talk to your partner to sell your project. No, get to know your partner, ask for another meeting, maybe approach emails and so on. Now is 3 main techniques of approaching them. Cold calls, approach emails, and meetings. I'm going to talk about each one in specific tips for each one, and then we will move on how to keep those potential partners in contact. Okay, so cold calls. When is the best time to approach or call a company or NGO or potential partner? Is on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and from what time? 8 to 10 or 3 to 5. Why 8 to 10? Because in the beginning sorry. In the beginning, they're still there. They just came to work. They're awake. They don't have much pressure and so on. And 3 to 5, they're ready to go home. So they just want to work quickly. So they'll do whatever they want just to get home. Okay. For emails, the best time is from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So basically throughout the day, but I would prefer 8 a.m. because when you first go to work, the first thing you do is turn on your laptop, check your emails, go through them, and this is when it's still fresh, the idea is fresh, and everything looks good to them. So I suggest you start at 8 a.m. And for meetings, I'm going to give you a couple of statistics. Only 2% of sales happen after your first interaction. So that's why you always need to meet with your partner. You need to understand your partner, what your partner needs, how they think, what do they think of your project in specific, why are they doing this, are they really aligning their purpose with yours, all these things. So that's why you need to keep meeting. So you won't have a high percentage of selling if your partners don't first know you well and don't understand you. So that's why you need to meet. The second meeting is only going to have 3% of sale, and then after the fifth or more interaction, you have 80% of sale. So now the partner is comfortable with you, they can talk to you, they can tell you what they're expecting, and so on. Tamam? Okay. How to keep partners going. I gave you a couple of tips. So always after your project, never forget to send your partner a thank you letter. Thank you for participating with us. You helped us with this. The impact of this was this and so forth. It's very important to thank your partner because they also had a hand in your project. Another thing is to send statistics from project. So how many people attended the project? How many people were impacted by this reason of the project? How many people started using, how many people started recycling more, whatever. So if your project was about recycling, then you can have a statistic about did they actually benefit from it, do they know how to recycle now, and so on. And then also send them updates after a period. So let's say if you tackled this area with recycling, you would be like, okay, so 50% of them now have recycling bins in this area. So for example, in our project, what we would do is that how many families now have better clothing, for example, and so on. And then another thing is invitations for future activities. So don't disconnect your partner. You don't only want them for one activity, but you want them to come and see what you're doing, see how your organization is working. How's the MEDs doing? What does the MEDs do? How are the other activities of the MEDs? Are they successful? And so on. So you need to always keep your partner involved. They might not come, they might not show up, but sending an invitation is always a plus. Another thing is results from the feedback form. So after your activity, directly send the feedback form to everyone, to the participants, to the volunteers, to the audience, to everyone. Collect the data and send it to your partners. And the last thing is also talk about any possible future projects. So if you saw that your first project with them was successful, then go ahead and ask them for another project. So it's always good to always suggest new projects. Okay, and now ideas for projects for Global Youth Service Day. I have two ideas. One is global goals and the second is Isaac. As Bethany introduced, the global goals are by the UN and we're supposed to achieve them by 2030. And I think the best thing to do about the global goals, about GYSD, is to align it with a global goal. Why? Because it narrows your project. You know what you're going to do, and it makes it easy to look for partners, makes it easy to look to plan, and also material are already ready. And it's pretty cool. You have support, they're well known, and also other than that, you can look for what your country
I think we're having a few technical difficulties. Can you give us a second while Dima gets her microphone working again? And while we're waiting, if you could answer both polls, wondering if you know anything about where your country stands on the SDGs and which SDG you think you might be interested in.
Hello? I'm back. Sorry, my connection was lost. I'm waiting for my presentation to load. Anyway, always look for what your country's policy on the global goals, because then you know that your country needs this the most and that you can help doing this by aligning your project to the global goals. And it has huge support. NGOs always support it. It always gives you a great support when you go to partners, because they know that you have the UN with you. Another thing is Isaac. So Isaac is the largest youth-run organization in the world. And Isaac works on different projects in different ways. And one of the projects is bringing people from outside to the country and working on a project, either education or environment and so on. And what you can do is always get in contact with Isaacers, and they can help you look for NGOs. They're very friendly people. They will always be there. You can always contact them and maybe join them with one of their projects and so on. If anyone has any question about Isaac, they can contact me at any time. And so far, this is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your time. And I can't wait to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Dima, for all of your tips. I honestly learned a lot too about seeking out partnerships and about the global goals. I know that that was just a brief introduction for a lot of you about the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you have any questions for Dima, you can type them in the chat box and we'll make sure that she answers them before the presentation is over. But in the meantime, we will get started with Simona, who's going to teach us a little bit about how to create a sustainable project.
Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me well. As Bethany said, my name is Simona and I come from Macedonia, and I was in the States in 2009 and 2010 in Washington, Iowa, and I'm currently the GYSD Alumni Coordinator for Macedonia. Let's get started. Today I'm going to talk about how to have a sustainable project in just 4 steps, and I'm going to share how we did a blood drive that we do every 6 months in Macedonia. So the first thing when you're starting out a project is you start with the community. And why it's so important to have to a bigger capacity, and also it forms like a brand of your alumni community in the community you live in. So first, what you need to do is you research either using surveys or maybe research among the alumni, among NGOs, everything like what is the need in the community. That need, then you combine it with the local culture and values, because you want to create something that will be accepted by the community and that something that will be a natural thing to happen in the community. So what we did is we, in an informal talk, found out that the Red Cross in Skopje was lacking blood supply in their storage. So that's how we created the idea for our Global Youth Service Day project. So the second part, when you try to do a sustainable project, is building lasting partnerships. Because first of all, we're so young, we need to be very professional and leave a good impression. So what we did in Macedonia is we scheduled an official meeting with the secretary of with the general secretary of Red Cross, and on that meeting we finalized some of the details we want to see happen in the project, and we signed up a memorandum of collaboration, and we tend to renew that memorandum every 6 months, since that is the most the easiest way according to our law in Macedonia. So a very important step when creating partnership is to be reliable, to be punctual, to leave a professional impression, and also to be honest and listen carefully. So, for example, when they ask us how many boxes of blood we can provide total, we did a research and we found out that the maximum amount we can offer is 20. So we didn't overestimated and said, for example, 100 just to impress them, because that would have left a very wrong impression, because they need to prepare, for example, the doctors and anesthesiologists, the psychiatrists, and everything. So it's always very important to be honest and be realistic about the goals you're setting while partnering and also creating a sustainable project. The third part when doing a sustainable project, which is usually one of the most important ones, it is financial planning. There are 3 types of projects that you can do. The first one is to make the project that doesn't need funding, and you can be very creative and create projects that don't need funding, and also to make them sustainable. For example, this week we are going to the elderly home, where we are just going to spend some time with the elderly people, drink coffee and just have a conversation with them, engage them in conversation. So we don't need any funds, and still we are doing a community service. The second way you can do a project, it is to make the project to be self-sufficient on its own. That means that either the project itself to create money in a way by either selling the final goods that will be produced at the end from the project. So, for example, we once did a creative workshop where we learned how to do jewelry, and when we sold the jewelry, we used those funds to keep going the project. And the third way of doing a project, it is by finding an in-kind donation or sponsors for your project. In particularly for the blood drive, we communicated with the local council, city council here in Skopje, and they informed us that there is a policy that everyone who donates blood receives a free lunch box, which is provided by them, because when you donate blood, you lose a lot of amount of blood from your body, and you need extra sugars. So that's how we resolved the financial part of our project. You always, when it comes to finance, you need to think outside the box. Even if sometimes it looks like there is no way you can do it, it never hurts to ask, for example, some company or some society, to ask them if they can donate, not the whole maybe part, but just at least provide the part of the things you need. Sometimes that cannot, doesn't have to be things, it can be also some of the services for using. And the fourth and also very important part, which sometimes we as alumni are forgetting, is measuring our success. In order to have a greater impact and show the world what you're doing, you need to somehow measure your success. You need to have evidence for that. Nowadays, it's very easy with our smartphones, because we can take photos and post it in the social media and spread out the word about the great work that our communities are doing. But also for our own statistics, it is very important to measure the success. This can be done in two ways, in quantitative or qualitative way. In quantitative way, it means the numbers. We can see how many people showed up, or if it's for example, food drive, how many items were collected, how many times the project happened, so the sustainability, how many alumni, non-alumni showed up. The qualitative part can demonstrate the need of the impact, how well we covered the need, or it can describe the journey of the individuals and the community. So there are different ways of how can you measure the success, but it is very important to do that, because it is very important to share out the message and to create a bigger impact to your community by sharing that message and measuring your success. These are some photos of an event we did. We started a V Club recently to promote community service. And I'm going to end up with some final notes about the sustainability. Always, when you try to do a sustainable project, create a time frame of the project. We have projects that happen just annually, quarterly, monthly. Decide how you are going to do that project and set up the time frame. It's very easy when you're setting up the time frame to have a great time management, delegate the responsibilities it to the alumni and create a perfect project that will have a very good, successful project at the end when you try to keep like a time frame. It also, this will help in developing the alumni skills for future. We always try to modify and change the project because we tend to learn from the feedback and from our mistakes. That's a very important step. You can never give up by making mistake or having a low attendance or everything. You need to research and find out why there were less alumni showed or something did happen to the project, and try to take that as a feedback and improve it in next time you are doing that project. Trust me, it really helps for your motivation, first of all, and second, you become a better professional and you get even greater success from time to time next time. You need to modify the project. It is not a bad thing to try to different way or add new things, take out the other things. It is a great way, and it is a great way because you attract the alumni. I always tend to ask the alumni if they enjoy the project, what they want to do, was that fun for them, because we're all volunteers, and we need the project not just to have impact but also to be fun both for the alumni and for the recipients. So those are my points for a sustainable project. If you have questions, you can just write me in the chat, and it was my pleasure sharing my thoughts and my experiences about Global Youth Service Day, and I hope we have a lot of projects this year for Global Youth Service Day, and be the leading on the youth service, Global Youth Service Day map, to be the leading group of YES alumni in the whole world with the most projects in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simona, for telling us more about creating a sustainable project. I think that the advice that you gave was super helpful. And I especially love, which I think Christine also highlighted, that one of the most important things is to just not be afraid to ask companies for money or partnerships or donations of any kind. And that can help you continue funding your project so that you can continue doing it throughout the year. I also really liked the part where you talked about doing free projects, because you don't always need to spend money to do a volunteer service. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions that the audience has for any of the three presenters. The first question that I saw earlier was for Dima, and it was about why Wednesday and Thursday particularly are good times to make an ask for a partner. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes, of course. I think Wednesday and Friday, because on Wednesday it's in the middle of the week, and they have time from recovering from the weekend, so they're back to work, they're back with the energy, they're already used to it, so they have clear minds. In the beginning of the week, they're still stuck to the weekend, they're still trying to sleep and all that. And for Friday is because it's the last day of the week, so they try to finish everything they have for that week. So let's say if you contact them on Wednesday, they probably would respond by Friday if you want a quick response. And for Friday, if you contact them, they would respond in the same day because they want to get done with it and just want to go home. So that's why I think those 2 days are the best.
Great, thank you. I would like to ask Hassan if you could talk a little bit more about how your alumni brainstorm project ideas in your country? I know that you wrote it in the chat box and it was really helpful. So I'd like it if you could say it so that we make sure that everybody hears, and also maybe elaborate a little bit on what you said about project.
Yeah, I think it's very important to address the needs of the community in terms of what they want, but also in order to keep the interest of the alumni alive, and those who are inactive especially, it's important that we address their interests. And for example, if we have members that are passionate about painting or sports or something like that, then we can do projects related to that. Or if we have someone working in the agricultural sector, we can address the needs of the community in terms of that as well. So once we get together, we sit down and we put up project ideas on a document, and then we finalize them, and then we talk about them in detail and how that could impact and benefit the community. And what helps and what that does is that it helps us come up with ideas and projects that are very helpful to the community, and also that are sort of aligned with the interests of the alumni. So that's the practice that we've been following, and if that's the practice that the alumni community that is present in the other sectors follow as well, then I feel like that could be a success.
Great, thank you, Hassan. Tamba asked a question, and I'm not sure if any of you three presenters would like to address it, but he asked about if it's okay to disclose your budget to other volunteers who are not YES alumni in the project. Has that occurred for any of you? Do you often have other outside volunteers who participate in your projects? And Tamba, can you elaborate with your question as well? Do you mean to tell the budget so that they know the limits, or what exactly do you mean by your question? While we wait for that, I would like to ask Simona if your blood drive is still continuing on, and if the same leadership has been in charge of organizing the blood drive the entire time.
This year we are doing it again in May, since we have in April the fasting for Easter, and we had to postpone it because during fasting it's not good to donate blood. And yes, we have the same alumni organizing, but we have also new alumni who came also joining the cause. And in September, the other, because we do it every 6 months, U.S. Embassy helps, and it's the organizer, and we are just more of a participant and helpers to the event. So it changes.
That's great. I think that can be something really helpful because it's hard to have one person in charge of an ongoing project. So it's great that you're able to transfer responsibility. I know that it's already been an hour. It's amazing how fast time flies. So we're going to conclude the webinar now. But if you have any questions that were not answered so far, you can always email them to me, and we can make sure that the presenters get them and can answer your questions later. But thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited, and we hope that this got you excited about Global Youth Service Day. I'd like to remind you to please register your projects with YSA on their website so that they know how many YES alumni are involved in Global Youth Service Day. And I would also like to ask you to please share any of your GYSD activities with us by submitting your story to the YES website, and that way we can post it and everyone in the alumni network can know about the great work that you're doing. We wish you the best of luck in creating your projects and planning, and we can't wait to hear about them. Thank you for joining.